So what is the verdict? How much battery level does it take to essentially drive across the entire length of Malta? This thing, which I know is going to be a popular feature among the Maltese, is what they call the traffic jam assist feature. So it's not clutch, brake and gas, it's literally no pedals at all. Perhaps this does give you a bit more of the driving feel back in an electric car, right? Because so welcome to this second video featuring the Honda Ny1, Honda's second fully electric vehicle built on this all new electric architecture. If you haven't seen the tech focused review, you can check it out from the link in the description and currently shown above. But now we're going to be driving it. I'm going to be telling you what this car feels like here on the open road, and we'll be answering that all important question: what is the real world driving range here in Malta, where, let's be honest, our climate and our temperatures and our driving speeds are all ideal for electric vehicles. And I'm going to be doing something different that I've never done in one of these videos. Basically, I'm heading north to Chirkowa, which, as you may know, I've done in the past. I'm going to charge the car up over there, and then I'm going to drive literally to the other side of the island, and I'm going to tell you by how much my battery percentage goes down for essentially one of the longest trips you can do in Malta. And we'll be able to calculate how many times you can cross the island before needing to recharge, essentially. So as always, I'm Luke, and welcome to another episode of The Future is Electric. So let's start with the driving feel of this car. So of course, this is an all-electric vehicle, so it has everything you expect in terms of comfort and performance. So in terms of performance, I think this is dialed in perfectly, right? This is an SUV which is sort of designed and engineered and expected to be used by families. And I tell you, if you press on the accelerator, it gives you more than enough power if you need to, say, overtake or find yourself in a tricky situation. So in the power front, no problem at all. For me, what's sticking out, I mean, the overall ride today has been extremely comfortable, without a doubt. But for me, the standout feature has to be the silence in the cabin. They've done an excellent job, and I can tell this because I was driving around today and I was hearing the sound, and it's sort of that sound you hear when there's a plane in the distance, and I'm looking and I'm trying to look for the plane, right? And there was no plane. It was the truck right beside me, which sounded like it was miles away, right? That is how good the soundproofing in this cabin is. I mean, if I just probably open the window here, you'll hear, I'm guessing you're hearing, I'll have to check later when I'm editing, a huge difference to when I close the windows, as you're saying. So definitely for me, the standout feature has to be the silence in this cabin. Of course, coming from the electric motor, but they've done a brilliant job sealing everything from the outside world. Now, the steering wheel and driving position are very, very comfortable as well. The regen paddles behind the steering wheel, not a big fan, right? So I don't mind them if they're there. I'm more not a big fan, not of their position, but of the way the regen is worked. I've been using it today, and basically the regen, it does this thing where it turns itself off. It's only on momentarily after you press the pedals, and I'm not really a huge fan of that. Definitely no one pedal driving available here. So basically the way it works, firstly, the plus and minus are flipped from all the other cars we've tried. In all the other cars, if you press plus, it increases the regen, so it slows down the car faster, and if you press minus, it decreases the regen. But here it's the other way around. If I press minus, it will decelerate the car. There's three sort of levels, so you have to tap it 3 times to get to the maximum one, but after a while it just turns itself off and you're back to driving. So as an EV enthusiast, I do miss that one pedal driving mode, I'm not gonna lie. But perhaps this does give you a bit more of the driving feel back in an electric car, right? Because you're going to be using the pedals actively to essentially control the deceleration of the vehicle. And again, it's very minor, but it is definitely there. So I've made it to the Chirkowa charging station. That's in the northmost point of the island. And park. Hold on, it's beeping at me because I'm getting a bit too close. So I've parked him forward because the charge port is in front. I'm going to top it up a bit here before we get going all the way to the south of the island. All right, so we are reversing out and moving to the next bay, because essentially out of the 4 chargers here, 2 aren't working. So the station is basically completely off. So I'm gonna reverse, and luckily the others are free, right? So reversing is a dream in this car, because you've got those 5 cameras, but you get 4 available to you here as you're sort of navigating and reversing. And there we go. What's nice is let me stop the beeping. Park. The front facing camera turns on in the center display to show you what's in front of you, which is obviously a nice touch given that camera is there. So that was nice to see. All right, let's charge this thing. Okay, so while we're here just waiting to top up the car so we can leave on our big trip, let me tell you a bit about this interior, right? So of course what steals the show here is this extremely large portrait oriented screen that's very crisp, right, and extremely responsive, right? So it's definitely a good job here from Honda. Now it reminds me a lot of like the Mustang, right, or the Tesla, which have the screen in this portrait view, the Model S Tesla. And basically although it is in this very long orientation, the screen is actually divided into sort of like 3 categories. You've got your maps at the top, which also double if you're connecting with wireless Apple CarPlay. That shows up at the top of the screen, which I like because that's perfectly sort of in reach of your hand, right? And that's, I think, from my point of view, the most thing you're going to be using here. So it's a good job they're putting it there. One thing to note is Apple CarPlay is wireless, but Android Auto you do have to connect with the cable, so it's not a wireless option there. Now the center of the screen are the different menus available in the car, right? So you've got different programs which are going to show you your power flow. You can set your charging schedule, so there's a sort of timer built into the car here, or setting your charging limit, which I spoke about in the tech review. Trip computer is also here. You can activate the multi-view camera system, so you can have a glance around your car from here as well. So that center section is for the apps, right? And then the bottom section is reserved for the air conditioning. We've got dual climate zone, so I've got my here, and the passenger here will have his own or her own as well. So the AC is found along the bottom, including the buttons to turn on the heated seats. Heated steering wheel actually turns on from the steering wheel right here, which I guess makes a lot of sense. So the screen is a great job. There's a second screen over here, which again, very high quality screen. Okay, so in here it's definitely premium. Okay, probably not as premium as some of the more premium brands, so to speak, but it's definitely a step up for Honda, that's for sure. And you know, everything you'd expect is over here. So basically there are 2 trim levels you can get off this car. You've got the Advanced, which is the one I'm in today, and then there is the Elegance. Now the differences are actually very minor, and so is the difference in price. Now basically with the Advanced, which again is the one I'm in today, you get an extra 4 parking sensors. You get the leather steering wheel, you get the power tailgate, which is hands-free, you get the 10.2-inch screen, which is what I have over here, and the panoramic glass roof, which does come with a shade for the front, and the back has sort of this half shade. I'm guessing the other half is somewhere in the car, maybe in the boot, we'll check. But it's nice to see you get a shade. In Malta it gets pretty hot, that sun is quite bright through the glass, and nice to see you can actually close it, so that's definitely very helpful. So very minor things between the two trim levels, as I said, and what's important here is the tech is all the same. So the battery pack, the motor, the charging speed, everything stays the same, so you're literally just upgrading, so to speak, these little gadgets here and there. Alright, so I've topped up the car ever so slightly just to check the charging experience. One thing to note about the Honda here, and it's good to know because you might, the first time you go charge the car, you might get a bit of a fright. So if you don't know, if you're not used to electric vehicles, the charging cable actually locks both in the charger and in the car, and basically on the side of the car it didn't automatically release itself. I had to press a button, and there's a small button next to the charging cable port, and then that released the charging cable. If you don't press it, the cable is just going to be stuck there, so that's important. So my battery level is 85%, and I am at the northernmost part of the island, and I'm going to go all the way south just to prove a bit of a point here. We're going to see how much percentage essentially I use / lose till I get to the other side of the island. So we're gonna know with this car how many times you can make this for Malta a rather long journey, right? So it's around a 40-kilometer trip, by the way. Malta's around 31 kilometers, I believe, and because of the winding roads, because I know, because we've done this before on the channel, right? Link above to see that video. When we drove from one side to the other, that time against a petrol car, just to compare the fuel costs, right? And today it's different. Today I'm just saying how much percentage I'm going to lose here on the journey. So let's go. So let's talk a bit about those driving modes. This car has 3 modes. They are toggled from down here in the center with a little switch. You basically have your normal mode, you have your sport mode, and you have your econ mode. So not eco, but econ. So basically your normal mode is probably the mode you're going to leave it in the most. And then if you want to, I guess, have a little bit of fun, you can as well put it in sports mode, which is going to give you that full dose of power. Let me do that right now. So this gives us the full dose of power, but of course this is eating away the electrons in my battery the fastest. So my experience, having driven an electric car now for 3 years, is you will turn this on a bit here and there, but for the most part you're sticking to that normal mode. The econ, this is quite interesting, and again, another new thing to the channel. So it's not a typical eco mode, it's an econ. And the thing here, what they do is basically in the eco mode, generally what happens is, besides reducing the power of the vehicle to save on battery life and give you better range, they also generally tweak or completely turn off the air conditioning. And what they're doing here, which is again quite unique from the cars I've seen so far, is basically the air condition not turns off but dials itself down. However, then the car is going to use the heated steering wheel and heated seats to readjust the temperature, or the perceived temperature, so that you essentially feel exactly how you were. So it's going to save consumption from that air conditioner, which wastes a lot more than the heated steering wheel and heated seats, and basically save some juice there as well. That was the warning to keep my hands on the wheel, by the way. One of the many safety features available in this vehicle. Now, a sort of continuation to this system, which I know is going to be a popular feature among the Maltese, is what they call the traffic jam assist feature, which basically means that when you get stuck in traffic, which is never here in Malta, right, the car will essentially press the gas and brake and regulate the distance from the cars in front of it completely on its own. So it's not clutch, brake and gas, it's literally no pedals at all. So we've hit some traffic here, shocker, but this is going to allow me to try the traffic jam assist feature. The car in front of me is braking, and as you can see, the car on its own, no feet, comes to a complete halt. Traffic jam assist. Now it's stopped, so I will need to press this resume button here, and the car will then continue. But I haven't had to use the pedals in any way. Hands stay on the steering, although the car is even turning the steering wheel itself, but you do have to keep your hands on the steering. Again, applies the brakes, and you only need to press that resume if you do come to like a complete halt. So it does tell you here when it needs it. It didn't need it there, so as you saw, it went on its own. I didn't need to press resume. It's the little things. It's the little things that get you excited. I like it. Who needs top speed when you have traffic jam assist? And it's stopping on its own. Amazing. So let me tell you a bit about the safety features included with this car, irrelevant of which trim level you get. So even in the base model, you get the full suite of safety features. They've got their Honda, what they call their Honda Sensing Suite. That's basically using 4 cameras, one in the front, one in the back, 2 on either side of the mirrors, as well as that center camera in the front windshield. Together with the cameras, it's also using the 12 sonar sensors around the car, and together they're making these safety features work. Now, those safety features include a lane departure warning and basically a system which keeps you in the lane. I've actually had it on the entire time. It's actually, in some cars, it's a bit of a nuisance, right? The second you start getting close to the edge of the lane, just the car start to shake the steering wheel and start pushing you back. But here, let me tell you, it's I do believe it's done really nicely compared to other cars. What do I mean? Well, I think the car is able to judge when you are in control and when you aren't in control / distracted. And basically, even though sometimes as I'm going around the bend, I approach the edge of the lane, it doesn't always take over and steer me back. I think if it feels that you sort of got it and that you have the car under control, it's not gonna sort of push you back to the center aggressively, as we have seen some other cars doing. So they are doing that very nicely, and as I said, I've had it on the entire time. It's extremely comfortable. I know if you're a driving enthusiast, you're probably not going to like this, right? The car driving essentially the steering wheel for you. But let me tell you, for the daily commute, this is a no-brainer in terms of functionality and comfortability. All right, I've officially made it to the other side of the island. We're actually in Birzabuja. We've got the cranes of the Freeport right next to me. So what is the verdict? How much battery level does it take to essentially drive across the entire length of Malta? You will remember I left with 85% state of charge, and my battery level readout at the moment, 76%. So with 9% of battery, we're able to cross from one side to the other of the island, which means you can do this trip back and forth 10 times essentially with a full battery in the Honda Ny1. And may I remind you, what I've driven today is double the Maltese average. The average driver in Malta covers under 20 kilometers per day, right? And I've driven double that today, and you can drive the entire length of the island, as you can see, 10 times. But perhaps the number which interests you, that real world driving range, right? So this car has a claimed WLTP range, as you may recall from my tech review, of 412 kilometers. Now, looking at the efficiency of the car, and I must highlight, I've had the air conditioning on 19 degrees, low fan, and the air temperature today 22 degrees, and I've driven the car not in econ mode, but in normal mode, okay? What are the numbers, right? So we got an efficiency of 14.6 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers, which means if we take the usable battery capacity in this car of 61.9, divide that by 14.6 that we're seeing on the car, and multiply that by 100, the real world driving range based on today's conditions, 423 kilometers, which means we officially exceed the WLTP rating here in Malta. So it's great to see that you're going to get more range than the car is actually being advertised or sold at here in the real world driving conditions in Malta. And that wraps up the second video on the Honda Ny1. I hope you enjoyed my driving video, and if you haven't, make sure you go check out the tech focus review. As always, make sure you hit the like button if you enjoyed or learned something new today, and subscribe always helps. The merch is now available. There is a store linked below if you want to support the channel a little bit more and get the hoodies, t-shirts and all that good stuff. It will help us out a lot to make sure we keep this going. But as always, I hope I have convinced you that the future is electric.